Take it away.
Hello, hello. Thank you. We are going to just add our panelists to the spotlight here. Who else am I missing? Kimberly, let's add you in. Awesome. Hi, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. I know that we are all grappling one way or another with this reopening. I think in a lot of ways, it was, I don't know if easy is the right word, but maybe simpler to come into this in terms of just turning our physical offices off and going remote, although that had its own challenges. But coming back in just definitely has more decisions, I think, attached to it than we had on the other side of it. So I know we're all happy that we are able to have the state open up and things are looking so much better with COVID, but it has led to a lot of stress and agony over how to do that and what it looks like. So I'm so excited we have this, like Peggy said, diverse panel today, because not everyone, just like all of you associations are big, small, different locations, different cultures. This is no different. Every association is kind of approaching this in a slightly different way, and hopefully giving you an overview on what this group is doing will help you with your decisions, or at least kind of have some perspective on what other parts of your counterparts are doing in the state. So we'll jump right into it. So June 15th feels like we're leading into that next week. And you may have even noticed that, and I'll ask the panelists about this too, that Cal OSHA guidance is expected to change as of June 15th. They put something out last Friday talking about updates on face coverings, for indoors and outdoors, and also for social distancing. So we've been looking for that. And Jenny Lee will be at the AE Town Hall on Monday to really go into depth on what that looks like for June 15th. But other than that, the state is really opening. And so I'm just gonna ask Mark to kick it off, representing our larger association with multiple locations. Tell me a little bit about your reopening plan thus far, and where you're at and where you're going, if you don't mind.
Great. Well, I guess for LA County, once we went from the purple tier into the red tier, back on March 15th, we started offering curbside at all 3 of our locations, Monday through Friday. When we went from the red tier to the orange tier, we started bringing our executive staff back into the building 2 days a week. Starting to just prepare things. And then as of June 1st, we started bringing the rest of our staff back in on an A and B shift. So we're bringing half the staff in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday's kind of a cleaning day, and then Thursday, Friday, we're bringing the other half of the staff back in. That's taking place the first 3 or 4 weeks of the month. The last week of the month, we'll bring A and B, combine them together as we prepare to do a soft opening back up to our members, allowing members back into the building on July 6th. July 12th is going to be our grand reopening week, where we're actually going to promote that we're open. The week of the 6th is more of a soft opening, where we will start doing hybrid committee meetings as well.
And remind everyone what county you're in, or if you're in multiple counties.
We're in multiple counties. Yeah, we're in multiple counties. So we're in LA. We have 2 locations in LA County and 1 location in San Bernardino County.
And of course, that's relevant because we all know that the local guidelines have been a tricky one, because sometimes they've been stricter even than the state. And so that's also something to be cognizant of. Can you tell me a little bit about, with your reopening, what you're doing in terms of mask wearing and social distancing inside the office and vaccinations, all those kind of good stuff?
Yes, so we did make the decision to require that all staff be vaccinated. That is something that, as we looked very closely, it was really about for liability reasons to the organization that we decided to require that everybody be vaccinated. We came up with several different forms, and I'm happy to send that to you guys to send out later. One is called a return to work certification of vaccination status form. And what that does is it lets every staff kind of give us an update where they are with their vaccination status. They can check one box that says I'm fully vaccinated, or the other box is I have not been vaccinated, and the reason for non-vaccination is because of disability, pregnancy, a religious belief, or practice or belief. So that would be the only reason why they would not be required, is due to one of those three reasons. As long as everybody, per the CDC guidelines and the Cal OSHA guidelines, as long as everyone is vaccinated at that location, we would not require masks until we open the doors. But once the office opens to members, masks will be required of both staff and members.
So Phil just asked a really good question. I'm sure a lot of people want to know. How do you anticipate handling those, and you might already be dealing with that, those employees who are not vaccinated and don't plan on getting vaccinated, that maybe don't fall, of course, that don't fall into the categories you just mentioned?
So right now they would be required, if they did not fall into one of those categories, they would be required to come in. If not, we would understand if they chose not to be employed with us anymore, but we are requiring it for their safety.
And I will say that I think that's the direction C.A.R. We haven't made this concrete as of yet, but that's definitely, I believe, the direction C.A.R. is going, not just in terms of requiring vaccinations for those to return to the office.
And that is also NAR as well, is requiring that in their first wave as well.
So that's interesting, that's coming out. Okay, and can you just remind me, I'm sorry, I didn't get all of your details before I just jumped right into it, but you have 3 offices. Your membership is how large, just for context?
About 7,000. We're 7,000 now.
Okay, and you have you said 20 staff?
We have 20 staff over 3 locations.
Okay, so that just gives you some perspective on this. And so, okay, we'll come back and dig into some of that. But Kimberly, I know you similarly, your association, if you wouldn't mind kind of giving some context around your size and terms of membership and staff, you also are planning a slow rollout, is that right?
We've been in the process. I'm Kimberly Foreman from Newport, and I have about 1,700 of my members, and there's 5 staff, including myself. I've been the AE. I've been here for a long time, but I've been the AE for 2.5 years. And we're in Orange County, which became a yellow tier on May 18th. I've actually had the staff staggering in since April. So we went orange, I think it was like April, around Easter. And I had the staff, I did a non-overlapping where everybody works 2 days a week. So I shouldn't say non-overlapping. Monday is the only day I have 2 staff in the office in addition to myself. And then the rest, it's just 1 for the rest of the week. So everyone works 2 days a week, 8:30 to 5. And that's been going on since April. And our doors are locked. I don't allow anybody other than staff in the office right now. Staff wears masks when they roam the office. However, when they're seated at their desk, they have the option to wear their mask or not. I'm not requiring vaccines. There's only 5 of us, and there's more than 25 feet between desks. So I'm lucky that way. There's plenty of space. But I believe the whole entire staff, based on staff meetings we've had, is fully vaccinated. So I don't even have that worry at this point. We've been doing curbside service only. Peggy wanted me to mention that I have this brilliant investment of $20 at Amazon, and it's a Honeywell doorbell, and it's wireless. And so I put the button on the outside of the glass frame of our door, and then the box sits somewhere else. And at some point today, I could be talking and you may actually hear it because it comes all the way upstairs. And so that's something that we don't have to worry whether the receptionist is there that day. If the person in the back of the office is there to service curbside, they can hear the doorbell clearly. So that's been really, really good for the staff and the membership. So, and then as far as, I already told the staff on June 15th, everybody needs to work full-time back in the office. I have to say, staggering them in has been brilliant for us, because when we've been out of the office for so long, I'm sorry, but your desktop Windows updates are going to take a whole day. Your staff is going to be out of commission for a day or two because you've got your Windows updates. and getting the phone system back in order and transferring documents from their laptops over to their desktop. I mean, that's something I didn't even think about, but it took a good 2 or 3 days for everybody to be functional. So if you're planning on opening and your board wants you to open on June 15th, you might want to take that into consideration, because for me, I would rather the staff be fumbling around when there's no members around than when the door opens and then people are probably going to be excited to come say hi, and then, you know, the staff's not ready to even handle the member. So that's been really good for us. And you know, just I would definitely keep that in mind, because that was something I wasn't expecting. I also started early because when people are working remote, I mean, we honestly don't know if our staff's working in their pajamas or not, if you think about it. So I wanted everybody to start waking up, getting dressed, getting ready, driving. Nobody's used to the traffic. And just, you know, it was just mainly for our mental state to, you know, be prepared for work once we're all open. So that's been my big thing. I'm still hazy whether or not I'm going to open and unlock the door on June 15th, or if I'm going to wait till after the holiday. So I really don't have any direction there yet. I'm going to wait and see how my receptionist feels when June 15th comes around, and because she's the one who's going to have to be in front of everybody all the time. So I have plexiglass. Peggy wanted me to mention that too, because it's a total false sense of security as far as I'm concerned. I'm sorry, but if someone sneezes, it's going all around that plexiglass, but it makes the staff feel secure. And so that is good for me. So I've got hand sanitizer and wipes and plexiglass at their desks, and that makes them feel more comfortable being here. So I think I hit everything, but if you have more questions, you can ask me.
I have so many more questions. I'm going to come back to you. I have questions about how that hybrid situation, I know that word hybrid, I'm so sick of, I don't know what else to use, but you have some, when you have some remote and some in the office, you're already getting a taste of how that feels in terms of collaboration. And so I definitely want to come back to that piece, as well as how it seems like you have, you know, been leading this. And we also need to talk about that pressure from our leadership, because I think so many AEs have been struggling with that too. But I'm going to hold back for now because I do want to get a lay of the land from our other two panelists. Thank you, Kimberly. Awesome information. Andrew, I'd love to go to you next, because you're unique, where I think you've been open on some level, from what I understand, for quite a while now. So you're probably looking at all of us like, what's the big deal here, right?
What spies has C.A.R. been sending up my way to have that information? Yeah, I'm Andrew Blackburn. I'm the CEO of the C.A.R. North Valley Realtors, which is Butte and Glenn counties, about an hour and a half north of Sacramento. Membership of about 630 members now, staff of 3, including myself. And that's correct. I mean, we've been open for I will not give you a timeline, but quite some time. It's very much a case of the community's desire to just fully reopen. I mean, I think we have one restaurant in the whole city that has not reopened, but otherwise everyone's back to, if not business as normal, back to business. And it has been, I mean, I've got staff spaced out. I'm very lucky to only have 3 staff in a very large office, so we are able to space out very well. If they're not sitting at their desks, they're required to wear masks. We still do the temperature checks every day. But come the 15th, we will probably be back to business as normal. Our staff still will be able to sit far apart, but otherwise, our doors have been open for some time, and have been. We really only left the office in the really worst depths of the COVID crisis, and that was a struggle. That was an interesting conversation to have with my board of directors and my staff. When we reopened, it was almost to the point of, if we hadn't reopened, I would have had to go physically collect the keys from my staff and from some of my executive team, because they probably would have let themselves into the building to work. I'm definitely the diversity, I think, on this panel of the spectrum. I'm skewing the average of opening, I'll tell you that much. So we're very fortunate in that our case numbers have been low in terms of overall number in the county, just because of our population size. But we can talk all day long about how a 7-month-old CEO deals with a board of directors that would really like to be open and doing things full time.
Well, if you can get through this, you can get through anything, right? Well, yeah, you've really been tested. I can imagine, Andrew, in your first year on the job, and we're lucky to have you because obviously you've done an excellent job and you're still open and kept your staff safe, which says a lot. Okay, Lisa, last but certainly not least on our panel, we have Lisa Keelan, and will you tell us first where you are calling in from and your plan or non-plans?
Sure. I am the AE for San Luis Coastal Association, which we merged January of 2021, was Scenic Coast and San Luis Obispo, which I think plays in large part to my ability to not be open and to have somewhat of an apathetic leadership group. They're exhausted from a 3-year merger process. We are not open. We have 2 offices, one in Morro Bay and one in San Luis Obispo. I have 2 local staff people, me included, and I have a part-timer in Idaho. I don't have big grandiose plans to open. I have a very divided board of directors with regards to, I'm not requiring vaccination. We have 2 offices, 1 body per office, so there's not any sort of distancing issues there at all. Without asking my staff, I'm pretty certain she's not vaccinated. I'm pretty sure she's not planning to get vaccinated. The board of directors wanted to have a meeting in person, and so I suggested that the president reach out to the board, which was a quick response of, nope, that's not going to happen the way she planned or thought it was going to happen. And that's kind of what's allowed me to offer curbside. We do a lot of, I actually called Mark after we merged because I was curious about his staff and how he divided his staff and conquered tasks and whatnot. And he mentioned, which I totally stole and used, outcalling. And so we just started calling members that we hadn't heard from, or that I've been in the office. I've been in one or the other office the entire time. So I would watch people like come to the door and jerk on the door. And then we would call them and say, hey, yeah, COVID, we're not open. And try to reach out to them that way. So there wasn't as much of a, oh, I want to come in. It was brought up at marketing meetings because of the merger. We have 6 marketing meetings a month. So I see the faces of a lot of people all month long. And in asking what they were missing, because at one point it was, when are you guys going to open? Way too early for it to even be considered. And I asked what they were missing, and it was, oh, the snacks and the little candy bars and the, nothing legitimate. That really is what association provides anyway. So that was an easy, you can't have snacks, even if I did open. So we're not planning to open at all on the 15th. We're going to wait and see what happens with the mask and not mask. I'm trying really hard to push it for personal reasons. I'm going on vacation and I'm back on the 7th. So I'm trying to push it. And we've got enough committees that are trying to decide what they're going to do and all that it's not going to be a hard sell at all. So there's my big plan.
And just to be clear, so you're not having any, when you say you're closed, you're also not having any in-person committee board meetings of any sort, right?
No members come in at all. The only people, my 1 staff and I switch offices. We have, and Kimberly mentioned it, we have been prepping for, at some point, we're going to have to go back to real life again. So like get rid of the moldy water, make sure all of the old logoed stuff is gone, make sure the computers work, make sure the phones work, all the ink in the printers is dried out. So replace all the ink cartridges, all that little nuanced stuff that you don't even think about until you go into actually work.
And someone asked a good question about, so any of are your members, do you hear of your members? I know, especially in your area, I know marketing meetings, MLS meetings, I know from personal experience, were very popular, especially in small communities like that, where they want to get together, pitch their listing, just see each other like realtors do, they're social beings. Has that been an issue, and how have you handled that? Are they getting together on their own? Obviously, it sounds like the association isn't sanctioning anything of that sort right now.
So again, it's a benefit. The bank that they used to meet at in Cambria, for example, is not opening until the end of the year. So that committee is tasked with, you need to find a location that's budget appropriate, which was free. And if not, we now, check the budget and ask with the board. And then with San Luis, it was at the Madonna Inn, and they don't necessarily we surveyed them, and they don't all necessarily want to see each other unless they either have been vaccinated or not wearing masks. I mean, it's the complete divide is exactly what is in any cookie cutter little test group that I pull. You know, if a committee says, let's get together, I'll say, okay, ask everybody on the committee, how do you all feel about going into this room vaccinated and not, and addressing that? And they kind of give the blank stare. Well, I don't want to ask. I'm like, well, if the association is, you know, hosting an event, it's going to be asked. We're going to address it. We're not, I think they have a tendency, and maybe it's small towns, that it's like a lemonade stand or a taco truck that we're running. And it's like, no, there's like some legitimate concerns if we don't manage this properly. And that's in some instances a little over what they want to think about.
So it sounds like somewhat the lack of consensus right now among your board and your membership has allowed you to kind of kick the can down the road, so to speak, in a good way, kind of see how things unfold and make plans accordingly.
Totally. Actually, yep, exactly.
Awesome. So let's talk more about meetings, because I think that's a real conundrum of, you know, hybrid meetings. And I think that's just still yet to be seen of how, or maybe you guys have some good examples of how they're working or not working, what to go back to in person, what to stay virtual. We've learned so much from this pandemic that we, you know, can be remote and use technology in such a robust way. But not everything, I think we've all realized, is best with, you know, on a screen. So anyone want to jump in about meetings and kind of what they're contemplating or doing with different meetings? Because I think there's a lot to consider between board meetings all the way up to big membership meetings and installation events.
I think for us, our board of directors really wanted to meet in person in March, and I said, bad idea. But they did meet in person, socially distanced, in our big education center for May. So we did have an in-person meeting with them then, everybody masked. We are going to go to hybrid meetings starting July. So we'll allow both in person in a socially distanced area with Zoom in as well.
And that's your board meeting, did you say, Mark?
Our board meeting was 100% in person in May, yes.
In person. And so I'm sorry, you said that you're going to do a hybrid for which meeting?
Starting July. So all meetings will be hybrid starting July. We meet every other month. We don't have meetings every month. We meet every other month.
Can you tell us from a tactical standpoint how you're approaching the hybrid to make that work on both ends, the in-person and the virtual?
We're really fortunate that our boardroom has got lots of tech in it. So we have multiple cameras and we have all that fun stuff in there, as everybody would expect us to have. We're able to actually have it both where they're going to have multiple views of the in-person versus the Zoom. So it should be pretty easy to do.
So can you tell us a little bit about the technology? And anyone who knows Mark knows that he's been, far before the pandemic, a technology, I was going to use like obsessive, or what would you say?
Geek, whatever.
Geek. I was going to say nerd. I don't know. I know you wouldn't be offended by that. But so I don't know. So you had a lot in place already. Is there any technology that you have or that you know about that you'd suggest for associations to check out?
So right now we're just using Zoom. We were using Zoom before the pandemic, or we are also using GoToMeeting, both of them, but we just bring in 2 different camera views. So we're just doing a basic Zoom meeting. And then we have multiple screens in the room for the in-person attendees to see who's online.
So when you say multiple camera, like you have 2 laptops going or something?
So we have to have cameras installed in the ceiling, and we have mics hanging coming down from the ceiling.
You incorporate that into your Zoom meeting so that there's multiple views.
Yeah.
So that people who are remote can actually feel a little bit better engaged in the meeting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Is anyone else attempting or have attempted the hybrid meeting for small meetings like board meetings and have any advice? I know that OWL is a popular tool camera that I think we've actually even purchased for our board meeting to kind of attempt that. Lisa, did you have something?
Yeah, we bought one and I tried to play with it yesterday. It's very difficult to play with by yourself. So I recommend you get a friend, because you can't try to be virtual and in the meeting at the same time and get any sort of like, does a microphone work? What's the spot? Yeah, because they've asked for those lovely marketing meetings that we have by the 10. They've asked for those to be hybrid. So I'm trying to determine what that's going to look like before I promise that I can do that. But for sure board, for sure committee. My only concern with the board is, and I'm sure we've all seen it, is via Zoom, I'll have a director in their car and not at all engaged, right? They're present. So it's like, okay, that box is checked, but the engagement level is like non-existent. That's my only concern of not requiring that buy-in of get in the car, drive, be present. And hopefully I'm like way wrong and that won't continue to be an issue, but it's an issue.
I've heard that a lot. And I think I've also heard some associations who have put together or are putting together a code of conduct and expectations or etiquette, whatever you want to call it, because the rules have definitely changed. Like you just said, I was on a Zoom with someone on their bike. It was not only nauseating, but just really awkward and hard to focus. So I do think that that's something associations are really addressing. Does anyone have a code of conduct, or that you're kind of resetting the rules of a board meeting? Not yet. Not yet. Something to think about.
I did do it with nominating, because I knew one of the individuals on nominating was a no camera person. And it was such a small group that I just suggested that the president suggest that everybody be present on camera. You know, with 6 people, when somebody's missing, you don't even acknowledge their presence. But other than that, nothing official that they've had to sign or required.
Got it. Anyone else playing with a hybrid meeting of any sort yet, or considering it? Kimberly, are you thinking about that for membership meetings, or are you not that far yet?
We don't have membership meetings here in Newport, so I'm lucky there. And in terms of my board of directors, they're really excited to get back. If I have to do a hybrid, it would be probably for 1 or 2 individuals, and I just set my laptop up like I'm doing now at the end of the table. So at this point, I don't really know that I'm gonna do any type of permanent hybrid situation. I know my government political affairs committee has been wanting to do, you know, a hybrid style meeting for a while. So if I consider it, it would be for committee work. But again, I worry about the engagement level. Like, I don't want people just to be on it, just to listen. I mean, I want participation. So I'm not sure how I'm going to handle that. I know my first in-person meeting at all will be my board of directors meeting in July. So that'll be, I've pretty much kept the office closed to the outside people, in terms of even the only person I let in was my air conditioning filter guy to come in and put up the special filters. But I've been really kind of careful about that, not for myself, but for the staff. I really want everybody to come back. So that's a big thing for me. And when we do have meetings, I'm expecting all of my membership to wear a mask for a while. So regardless, you know, I'm not going to be a vaccination police officer. There's no way.
Emily, let me jump in real quick, just to round this out. So my board is about 14 members, and my committees are not that much bigger. We're pretty solidly in the live in-person camp. There's just not that many of us. We also get the, you know, cup holder views when people want to zoom in and they're not paying attention. I do have one board member who has very publicly stated that she's battling cancer, and of course that leads to very serious concerns about her health. And I've made it very clear to reach out to her and say that, you know, she is not going to be shamed in any way if she does need to Zoom. And, you know, as a young new millennial CEO, there's nothing I like more than you know, shining flashy new technology to my board members to show that I'm a young millennial who's hip. And just in evaluating, you know, hybrid technology, I made the decision that it was not going to be worth the association's money to buy an owl camera. As much as I would like to have one, as much as I would like to wire or rooms for it, in the end, it's not ideal. It is difficult to try and be present in person and also deal with, you know, just even one person on a Zoom meeting with just a laptop microphone. So to those who are considering installing this technology, really ask yourself, what's the cost to the association and what is the benefit going to be? Because I knew for me, I would enjoy playing with the owl camera, setting it up, showing it off, and then it would likely gather dust. And it's a pain in the butt. I wish I didn't have to do it, but I did want to help my member who did need to Zoom in. And unfortunately, it just meant a little more elbow grease on my end.
That's really great advice from someone who's a little ahead of the game, in the sense that you've had a little bit of experience and gone through some of the trials and tribulations with this. I love the chat right now. Our more seasoned AEs are giving you a little, I don't know, haggling you for your youth, Andrew, but I think they're envious. All right, I'm gonna get myself in trouble here, so I'm gonna move on. So
Emily.
Mark, going back to your in-person board meeting, are you requiring, and I'm sorry if you already mentioned this, vaccinations, or how are you handling the safety protocols in person for a small meeting like that?
So we did not require vaccinations for the board of directors, but we did make them all wear masks and we did have them socially distanced.
Okay, so you're not requiring them to be vaccinated, but you're taking other measures that you mentioned.
Absolutely.
Andrew, are you doing the same thing?
I'm just practically not going to be able to require vaccinations. It's just a fact of life. You have to pick your battles. So instead, what you do is you try and you find the little wins that you can get. So we have a pretty large classroom that I pulled out a lot of tables for, and I basically forced them to sit distant. Some people like to pick up their chairs and, very obviously move closer to their colleagues. I don't pick those fights either. If people ask, do I have to wear a mask? I say it would definitely make some people feel better, but a lot of them don't. So for us, it's just forced spacing as much as you possibly can, encourage masks as much as you can. I wear one, trying to set the example, but a lot of times it's just you have to play with the cards that you're dealt.
And Kimberly, speaking of hybrids, but pivoting to staff, how are you handling that? I know it sounds like a temporary period where there's some staff in the office and some remote working and with the intention of bringing everyone back. But right now, how are you doing meetings and things when they're like 3 in the office and I forget how many you have, but how are you handling that?
So we used Google Hangouts the entire time since March of 2020. So Google Hangouts has been brilliant because I know when people go to lunch because they need other people to answer the phone. It's been really great. We can chat all day long like we're in front of each other and we don't have to get up and walk to each other's desks. So even when I have staff in the office and staff at home, it's just seamless that way. I ask them to use it rather than getting up and going to the other person's desk. It's just quicker and more efficient. When it comes to our staff meetings, I've been doing those by Zoom. And if people are in the office, they have their laptops with them, they Zoom from their laptops, and people are Zooming from home, all of that. It's working really well. And last June, I brought the staff back. And that was a little more difficult. So those of you that are considering it, I'll mention it. When we came back last June, I did half days and I had everybody come in the office from 8 to noon and work from home from 1 to 5. And it was a little bit more difficult, well, why do I have to use the half-hour drive as part of my lunch hour? And all those kinds of questions will come up. And I think Mark's doing an AB shift. Maybe he's doing it differently than half day home, half day office. But I just noticed that the half day was way more difficult than saying, you're working Tuesday, you're working Wednesday, you're working Thursday. It was just so much simpler. And I didn't have to worry about all those, giving them extra time for driving and all that baloney. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. It does. And I think this hybrid thing, as I'm seeing in the chat, as we're hearing on a daily basis, is still very ambiguous as to what that really looks like and how to do it well. And if it can be done well, I'm still contemplating personally, is this just a layover until the dust settles and we figure out things that are just going to be virtual and just going to be in person? Or is that hybrid actually doable and feasible and is here to stay? So I think everyone's grappling with how much to invest in it for that reason, and what works and what doesn't. So I think there's some really good suggestions in the chat to really zone in on that on another. I think that's its own maybe AM 101 session, that if we can really get to the nitty gritty of the technology and maybe some inexpensive ways to try it out so that no one's going all in just to realize that it's really not the best option. I think that's still to come. So let's see. I do think Lisa, do you want to add anything to that? It sounds like you're doing mostly virtual, so you haven't had to, and you have a smaller staff. So there are some things that are harder and some things that are easier in this circumstance, right? With that.
Yeah, because it's, yes. And there will be moving forward. And I don't know what that looks like, right? 2 office, 2 staff. If I'm sitting in an office and I'm in this meeting, that door is locked. So there's that. That I haven't worked through yet. Board of Directors is not really excited for me to work through it yet because they don't know what it's going to look like with regards to what services need to be provided in person and not. I will say that I think my education committee, I've taken like account of every single meeting, how many bodies are there, how many registered, how many actually showed up, and some education needs obviously to continue being virtual. If it is in person, whatever, but if not, recorded and provided, because we've had more member engagement since March of last year than we have had in the 14 years I've been here, with people that come out from under the wood pile that I haven't seen for 12 years. It's like, wow, there you are, and you have a camera. So to not allow that access to that education that they otherwise would not participate in, I think is a major bummer for us when we are trying to serve the entire membership and not just those leaders and committee people that come in and get their face in front of ours. You know, it can be quite cliquey with those that participate and those that volunteer at that level, and then those that still are members even though they don't. So hybrid, Zoom, live, or in person, we need to make sure that we continue to touch all of the people.
That's such a good point, Lisa, the member engagement factor, because I think we all agree that that really went up and we elevated that member engagement aspect like no other, not only because they've needed us, I think their association, the Realtor Association, more than ever this past year, but also because the access, like you said, and you're getting a more probably diverse group of people who are engaged, and there's so many benefits to that. So along those lines, is there anyone who has identified one aspect of the activities you do as we are keeping this virtual? Like we've learned that this particular part is just so much better that way. Yes, Andrew.
So something that Region 2 did that I never got to see due to COVID in my short tenures, we did like a regional education day where the whole region would get together and do a bunch of educational events. It was kind of a big deal. And over COVID, what we did was all the AEs basically took a month and took a topic or a speaker and split up that work and brought people in. So like I'm having Gov come in July to give a legal update. And that has been tremendous for me as the new AE, that I can just focus on one educational event, one Zoom meeting, one Zoom link, getting one speaker and doing it, and then having all my colleagues across the local region do the same. We're able to kind of lower the pressure in terms of getting this big event put together, and way more people are able to attend because they can attend via Zoom, or we record it and get the meetings out. So we've had conversations of, you know, we may do something in person again down the line, but in terms of sharing this training resource and this educational resource, has really enabled us to kind of bond as AEs, but also get our members in front of each other. Even if they're little windows on a screen, they're seeing each other's faces and names. And we've just, you know, we're tickled pink that we're going to be able to do that and continue doing that.
Awesome. Great point. Is there anyone on the opposite end of the spectrum that has identified something that is so much better in person that really you'll go back to the way things were because it's so much more beneficial? Interesting. What about installations? I know we talked about this last year at this time too. What are your plans for your installation event? Are you getting pressure from your leadership to, I mean, everyone is busting at the seams to see each other and socialize and drink together and eat together again. What are you guys doing about that, or have you thought about that? Feel free to jump in, whoever wants to.
So for me, my affiliate committee already tried to do a cocktail mixer in June because the governor says we're open. And I said, well, let's not be trailblazers here. So I'm not getting pressure from my board of directors at all. In fact, my president is very much in the line of, we don't need to be trailblazers. I love that statement. So I steal it from him. So I've been very lucky that way. I would like to see an in-person installation. It is one of my favorite events we have of the year. I mean, it's probably 100 people. And we always do it at a very classy club, and it's really nice. It's quick. It's an hour and a half in the morning, but I don't know what December is going to look like, so I have the room booked, and if I need to move it, they're nice enough to move it for me. But we have a huge event we usually have in the fall. It's not happening this year. I don't, it's a charitable event, and I don't want to have 300 people in a ballroom right now with our logo on it. It's just not comfortable for me. So that I'm pushing off. We will probably have a cocktail mixer in July, but installation right now, as of today, is in person.
Sounds like a good plan, a flexible plan, as we've had to learn to plan. And AEs and a lot of association staff, we love to plan. Like our calendars are everything. And so I think this has been especially hard for us type A's who like to have some more certainty, but growth opportunity, right? Mark, do you have anything in person or I'm sorry, anything planned for your installation as of yet?
I'm sure it will be probably something in person, but possibly scaled down. We might, rather than doing it at a venue, it may be in our Ed Center or something, but we're still looking at all that.
And outdoor events feel a little bit, I'm hearing, more comfortable. And I think even from the state's guidance, we'll have more leeway to have more social related events that way. Is that a thought probably you guys are thinking about? It sounds like everyone's kind of waiting and seeing. Real quick, before I go to the audience, because I think there's some people who have some good additions that they might be able to add. How have you dealt with the pressures from your leadership? Because I know that's run the gamut too across the state. Some leaders, so it depends, I think, on the luck of the draw of your leadership that year, these last 2 years, and the relationships you have and the personalities, right? And so I think I've heard from a lot of AEs who've had awful difficult times and really been, created a lot of conflict. And then those who really just, have been able to take the ball and run with it, and the leadership just really supported those decisions. So anyone want to weigh in about that tough issue? It's a tough one. Yes, Andrew, I love your answering the hard questions too.
I'm pretty sure that's why I'm on this panel. I basically should have gotten a wooden baseball bat and painted the word liability on it and just walked around with it and, picked it up and, swung around in Zoom meetings, because that has been my key negotiating tool when it has come to dealing with the board and leadership, who are all wonderful people who are not hostile to me at all, but are hostile to the idea of taking COVID as seriously as they probably should. And so C.A.R. has been incredibly helpful. Emily, Adina, Peggy, multiple times I've reached out to you and said, I need a letter from C.A.R. that says, it is a liability if you meet in person. It is a liability if you do events. And I was able to take that letter and if not leverage it into exact conformity with what the rules were, much better situations to keep people safer. I would just say, the best thing I've been able to do is explain to people that they are making themselves liable to all kinds of consequences for their decisions that they're not thinking of. And many times they're not thinking of those consequences. And so as CEO, I've been able to just remind them of that and get better outcomes than otherwise would have happened. And it's been able to preserve my relationship with my board. I will say I've come out the other side, and I still get my chops busted for wearing, masks when other people aren't. However, no one's seriously offended by what I'm doing, and I see several people actually putting their masks back on when they see me doing it. So don't be afraid to lead by example, and don't be afraid to, wave around the resources that C.A.R. has been so awesome about getting out to us.
Andrew, anyone else want to add on to that?
I would just say that I'm, again, benefited by the diversity on my very small board of directors. And I think we, just as humans, believe that our world is exactly what we put in, right? It's your social media, it's the news you watch, it's the people you hang out with. And so sometimes they forget that there's somebody that sits across the table from them that might have different views. And so in their communicating with each other about how to move forward, there's the realization that, like, oh, not everybody thinks exactly like I do, which is what stalled us from sitting in a room together, right? So I don't know. I just think that the diversity, it will, I can't imagine what it's going to look like when we're all going to be back, but I think it's the diversity of the groups, and I'm sure we all have them, right?
Yeah, I think another vote for diversity on all levels. Yeah, and I will make a plug for the leadership symposium that we are going to have this year, because some of the things you're talking about, Andrew, the liability piece, I think is so important to drive home in a broad way, and to make sure our leadership is really aware, because I know above all else, you as AEs and association staff are so good about protecting the organization and putting their best interests first. And sometimes they don't align with the wants of the leadership, but I think the more information they're armed with, the better to diffuse those kind of situations or reduce them. So that's going to be September 21st and 22nd, and we definitely are going to have a big part component of that, of the liability piece. And as dry as some of that information is, I think it's super, super important. And it's going to be virtual, so you can bring your whole board. There are no costs of food and beverage associated with it, luckily. So that might be a good opportunity. Okay, with that, there's so much good information in the chat, and so many people are doing such cool things. And then also I'm getting a lot of ideas on future products and services we can give you. Like, I know you're talking about a waiver, template waiver for your large events. When and if you do those this year, some of the social events, what kind of waiver? And I'm sure that's something we can help you guys with too. So any ideas you have surrounding templates, services that we can provide at C.A.R. that will help you through this transition, please let us know. Don't assume we do, because we're really depending on you to tell us what those needs are. Rich, I know you're really shy, but I'm going to ask you if you don't mind sharing. It sounds like you have some really cool hybrid options, and I'd love to add you to this mix. I'm gonna even spotlight you.
Yeah, no, I was really excited because I've been worried about particularly the sound on these. When you do like a hybrid meeting, you have a sound system in your office. I was worried about the feedback and all that, and I learned a few things. One is that Zoom does a really good job filtering off the sound. So when you have one mic on and another mic on and a speaker, we're actually able to use a speaker in the room with Zoom, and it just works. For some reason, it just works, and I don't know why. So what we do is we use two systems. One computer, the person runs the meeting, manages the Zoom meeting on the computer. And then we bought a Samsung Galaxy 7, which has a 1080p camera in it for $200. And we put that on a mic stand. So we bought like these mic stand holders that holds it up in front. So one person runs the meeting and she or he is on the computer. And then the speaker, whoever comes up either to pitch a property or to talk, they're on the Samsung computer, and that one's basic, and they're both logged in separately. So they're both logged into Zoom separately. And we have 3 different rooms. In the room with the TV, the person who's running the meeting on the computer, she's plugged into an HDMI on the television set. So that transmits the sound to the television. So you have a speaker and everything works. We buy an Amazon microphone, and it's amazing. Our room fits 150 people, and we put the microphone on like a 20-foot extension and kind of put it sort of in the front, but in the center of the room. And it picks up people in the back of the room talking. It just works. It's just incredible, because we've struggled with like mics, and you have to basically put it in your mouth to talk. And this mic works on the hybrid meeting really far out. So I'd say, for under $1,000, we already had the mic stands. We already had some of the equipment. We got everything working. We put everything up on a projector in the back. The other thing that we learned is got great reviews. We haven't tried it yet, but instead of asking people if they're vaccinating, we're going to have, I'll send it to you, Kathy. It's Amazon. It's an Amazon little round mic, but I'll send you the mic thing. But we have a color-coded chart. So we bought stickers, yellow, red, and green. And you know how right now, if you go and you're meeting a relative or you're meeting someone, you kind of go to, you don't know, do I shake their hand? Do I hug them? Like you don't know how to react. So we're having a key when you walk into our meeting room. Red means, please keep your distance 6 feet. I'm wearing a mask. You don't really talk about the vaccine. Yellow means, hey, give me a fist bump. I'm keeping my distance, a little caution. Green means, give me a hug. I'm comfortable. And our members, as we've been pitching this on our online meetings, people really like that. So they don't have to talk about whether or not they're vaccinated or not, but they can kind of know how to interact with each other and feel safe around each other. So those are
That's
just
really
some of the
very creative, Rich. I love that idea because I think that we've all struggled with, identifying that the vaxes and the non-vaxes it is very, it's personal. And I think that's just not comfortable for a lot of people. So I love basing it instead on your comfort level, whatever that means. Sounds like a much more simple way to do it.
And then up until Thursday, I was comfortable just opening up and putting the burden on the attendees. But when the governor changed the office regulations on wearing masks, if anyone's not vaccinated, I'm still a little confused about how we treat our members, our committee members. I mean, if you treat them as a customer, that's one thing. If you treat them as an employee, that's a whole other thing. But the policies that I read are not clear on, what is a committee member? What is an attendee at a broker open or pitch session? So I'd be great to hear from C.A.R. at some point soon about just the definition with the new rules that the governor rolled out on Thursday. But thanks, Emily.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Rich. I love your ideas. And Trisha had a good idea too in the chat that wristbands are a good way, those color wristbands. I mean, I feel like we're going back to like elementary school with this, but it's back to the basics here, right? And just communicating in different ways. All right, and then I wanted to I know there's been some requests I've been getting for another large association to talk about their plan in terms of the staff who are not requiring vaccination. So Phil, I saw you here and I believe you're in that category, Phil Hawkins. So would you mind, Phil, sharing that with us briefly on what your plan is? And I think you're pretty open as of right now.
Yeah, so can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm trying to find you so I can post you. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, we're more similar to Andrew. We've been open for a very long time. I was pre-pandemic, I was kind of the guy that didn't like people working remotely, people working at the home, commonly kind of old school with that. But our employees have done an incredible job, and at least for the near future, and when I say near, probably the rest of the year, if not longer, I don't see a full staff back in the office. We're on a hybrid system where we have about a third of our employees in every day. We have about 35 employees, and they're doing a wonderful job from home. We've had board meetings in person for the last about year. Now they've been hybrid. We've given people the option. We haven't had any in-person, say, education or committee meetings besides board meetings, but we're about to. We have an ed center that holds about 100 people, and I envision us opening it up to about maybe 30, maybe 35, 40. And everything going forward is going to be hybrid. I don't think any of us can say that we're only doing in person or we're only doing hybrid. I think going forward we have to offer everything hybrid. Going back to the employees that are in the office, if you're in your cubicle, if you're in your office, you don't have to have a mask on. If you're walking around the building, you do. We just go with that. And I know I can ask if employees been vaccinated, but we don't. We just everybody plays by the same rules. If you're walking over to the restroom, you throw a mask on to walk to the restroom. If you walk to the kitchen, you're doing the same thing. If you're sitting at your desk, you don't have to have it. And any members that walk in the building have to have a mask. It seems to be working. We haven't had any complaints from employees or members, but we have about 3 in-person classes starting in July, and so I'm curious how those are going to go. And to go back to what some of the other speakers have said, it's been amazing the number of members that have logged on to education classes. Our education classes are up. The class that we'd probably only get 30 people for, we're well over 100 in all those classes. And we even had one kind of I guess it was more of a membership meeting, but it was a class that we hit 1,000 people. I mean, we've never hit more than 300, 350 on regular stuff. So there are some advantages coming out of this, and I think that we just have to carry them on going forward.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Phil. So we actually did poll the AEs at the May 24th AE Town Hall about all of these topics. It was a pretty extensive poll within our Zoom, 10 questions, all about, you know, how many staff are in your office now, when are you opening your doors, vaccinations, the whole gamut. And so we will send that out to, I think most of the AEs have seen that, but we'll send it out again to this group after in the follow-up email that Adina will send out, because I think that's interesting. And I think we're also planning on doing that same poll again in a couple weeks after the reopening to see how it's shifted, because I think this is a ever-changing, and people who thought they were not going to open until August last week may be opening in, you know, early July. So things are just shifting so rapidly. Also, there's an AE survey, and association staff survey out there. Hopefully you've received it. All association staff and AEs are invited and encouraged to respond to that. And that's also going to help us shape some of the things we're talking about. What should be virtual? What should be in person going into next year, into our budget season for even 2022. So with that, I know we're up against the clock here, but I just wanted to give each participant, each panelist, just some closing remarks, anything you want to add that we didn't touch on or comment on.
I think for us, and I think I sent it to you guys to send out, we have 3 different documents. We have a COVID-19 vaccination policy. We have a return to work certification of vaccine status form that we've done for our staff. And we have a return to work checklist. And we've sent that to you guys to send out to everybody. If you guys are looking for templates, happy to share that with you guys.
Awesome. I'm a total template person. I hate reinventing the wheel, as we all do. Plagiarism is great. So thank you for letting us do that. Okay, anyone else?
If anybody has any questions, I'm open. You can give me a call or email me anytime, and I'll put my information in the chat.
Awesome. Andrew, Lisa, words of wisdom, parting words. Lisa laughs.
I'll just say for any of the AEs who might not want to speak up but are having boards getting pushier and pushier about opening and you're not quite comfortable with it, I'll also put my phone number in the chat. You know, please feel free to talk with me and I'll let you know what's worked, what didn't work.
Awesome. Great resource. Lisa, you're just going to sit back and see all the problems that occur in the next 15 days, and then
you need tips on how to avoid making a decision.
You are the expert. Sounds like that's not such a bad position to be in. I think we all have decision fatigue. So I'm glad that you've positioned yourself that way.
Oh, yeah.
I really want to thank you all. I think you really did bring a diverse perspective. And I think it's just such a reminder that I just love the community that we've built as AEs and also association staff, and that all the answers are in the room. We just have to share with each other. And I think this is a start, and we can definitely talk more and do a deep dive into some of these aspects like hybrid meetings and other things we talked about. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to the lovely Peggy Mead. Thanks for allowing us to do this, Peggy. Oh, I think you're muted, Peggy.
And unmuted. There we go. Thank you, Emily, and thank you for doing a great job facilitating this. I really want to thank the panelists, Andrew, Kimberly, Lisa, and Mark, and also Rich and Phil Impromptu for just sharing and really putting yourself out there, because we all know that we are each other's best resource. And I just want to thank everybody for sharing. Bear in mind that everybody who pre-registered for this meeting will be getting a follow-up email with some of the meeting materials and the links, and the link to the recording as well, so that you have that. And I just want to thank everybody. This was a great session, our best ever attended, and a lot of engagement. So thank you, everybody, for being willing to share and participate.
Bye. See you soon.